The world watched in horror on October 7, 2023, as a long, simmering conflict erupted into a full-scale war. On that day, Hamas, the militant group that governs the Gaza Strip, launched a surprise attack on Israel, designated Operation Al-Aqsa Flood. Militants breached the heavily fortified border, attacking military bases, attacking towns, attacking a music festival. This coordinated assault resulted in the deaths of approximately 1,200 people, mostly civilians, and the taking of around 250 hostages back into Gaza. The sheer scale and brutality of the attack shocked Israel and the international community, representing the deadliest day for the country in its history and a profound failure of its renowned intelligence and security apparatus. The Gaza Strip, a narrow sliver of land home to over 2 million Palestinians, has been under a tight land, air, and sea blockade imposed by Israel and Egypt since Hamas took control in 2007. This blockade has severely restricted the movement of people and goods, leading to what many international bodies describe as an ongoing humanitarian crisis. Israel's reaction to the October 7th attack was swift and unequivocal. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declared that the country was at war, vowing to dismantle Hamas's military and governing capabilities entirely and secure the return of all hostages. The Israeli Defense Forces initiated a massive aerial bombardment of the Gaza Strip, targeting what it identified as Hamas infrastructure. Command centers, weapons depots, tunnel networks, many of which were located in densely populated civilian areas. This strategy, aimed at eradicating the threat posed by Hamas, immediately raised global concerns about the inevitable civilian toll. The initial phase of the war set a grim precedent for the months that would follow. The stated goals of the warring parties were clear, yet seemingly irreconcilable, creating the conditions for a protracted and devastating war that would not only reshape Gaza but also send shockwaves across the entire region and the world. The timeline of the war from late 2023 through mid-2025 is a chronicle of relentless escalation and deepening crisis. Following the initial aerial bombardment, Israel launched a ground invasion of northern Gaza in late October 2023, encircling Gaza City. The fighting was fierce and urban, with Israeli soldiers engaging in close-quarters combat with Hamas militants who utilized their extensive network of underground tunnels. By December 2023, the focus of the Israeli ground offensive had expanded southward, first to the city of Khan Yunis, and later, by early 2024, toward the southernmost city of Rafah, where over 1 million displaced Palestinians had sought refuge. A brief glimmer of hope appeared in late November 2023 during a week-long temporary truce, brokered by Qatar, Egypt, and the United States. The pause in fighting allowed for a vital surge in humanitarian aid and facilitated the exchange of 105 hostages held by Hamas for 240 Palestinian prisoners. However, the truce collapsed and hostilities resumed with renewed intensity. Subsequent negotiation efforts throughout 2024 repeatedly failed to secure a lasting ceasefire, snagged on the core demands of both sides. The year 2024 was marked by a series of grinding and destructive Israeli military operations across the Gaza Strip. After extensive operations in Khan Yunis, the Israeli Defense Forces turned their attention to Rafah in May 2024, despite widespread international condemnation. The Israeli operation in Rafah led to another mass displacement and severed the main artery for aid entering Gaza via the Rafah crossing with Egypt. By late 2024, Israel claimed to have dismantled most of Hamas's organized battalions, but the fighting shifted to a lower-intensity, insurgency-style conflict. As the conflict dragged into 2025, the situation on the ground remained volatile and precarious. Sporadic but intense fighting continued across the Strip, with Israeli forces conducting targeted raids and Hamas continuing to launch sporadic rocket attacks. By August 2025, the war had entered its 22nd month. Gaza was a territory fundamentally altered, its infrastructure obliterated, and its society shattered, ensuring that the cycle of violence and instability was far from over. The impact of this prolonged war on the civilian population has been catastrophic, with the scale of death and destruction reaching unprecedented levels. Palestinian casualty figures, reported by the Gaza Health Ministry, paint a devastating picture. By mid-2025, the death toll in Gaza had surpassed 50,000 people, including thousands of women and thousands of children. Tens of thousands more have been wounded, many with life-altering injuries that the decimated healthcare system cannot handle. Hospitals have been repeatedly targeted, damaged, or forced to shut down due to lack of fuel, medical supplies, and staff, turning places of healing into scenes of chaos and death. The war has triggered a massive displacement crisis. Nearly the entire population of Gaza, about 2.2 million people, has been forced to flee their homes, often multiple times. Satellite imagery confirms over 70% of housing units have been damaged or destroyed, leaving much of the territory uninhabitable. Families have been pushed into overcrowded shelters in schools, tents, and the ruins of bombed-out buildings, especially in the south. These camps lack sanitation, clean water, and electricity, creating a breeding ground for disease. The United Nations calls it a humanitarian hellscape, where survival is a daily struggle. Beyond the bombs and the bullets, a silent crisis of hunger has gripped Gaza. Israel's tight control over aid entry and the destruction of local food production have created famine conditions. Actions by both sides have worsened the crisis. Israel's restrictions on aid convoys, the targeting of humanitarian workers, and Hamas's alleged diversion of aid have created a perfect storm of deprivation. For Israeli civilians near Gaza, the war has brought deep trauma and loss. The October 7th attacks left an indelible scar and shattered a sense of security. The plight of the hostages and their families remains central and agonizing, fueling widespread protests and political division over the government's failure to bring all of them home. After nearly 2 years of war, the Gaza war has provoked a powerful and deeply polarized international response, creating significant diplomatic rifts and fueling a global protest movement. Initially, many Western governments, led by the United States, expressed strong solidarity with Israel, affirming its right to self-defense after the October 7th attacks. As the Palestinian civilian toll mounted and the humanitarian crisis intensified, that support began to fracture. By early 2024, even close allies urged Israel to exercise more restraint. In contrast, much of the global community, Middle East, Africa, Latin America, condemned Israel's campaign. Several formally recognized a Palestinian state in 2024 as a political statement. Pro-Palestinian protests erupted worldwide: New York, London, Jakarta. Demonstrators demanded an immediate ceasefire, an end to the occupation, and accountability for alleged war crimes. These demonstrations intensified pressure on governments and exposed generational and political divides. The conflict moved into the world's highest legal arenas. South Africa brought genocide charges at the International Court of Justice in The Hague. In January 2024, the ICJ issued a provisional ruling ordering Israel to prevent genocidal acts and facilitate humanitarian aid. In mid-2024, the ICC prosecutor announced intentions to seek arrest warrants for leaders of Hamas, including Yahya Sinwar, and Israel, including Benjamin Netanyahu, for alleged war crimes and crimes against humanity. The announcement sparked outrage in Israel and drew mixed global reactions. These legal actions further isolated Israel diplomatically. The U.S., while continuing to supply military aid, found itself balancing strategic alliance with growing international and domestic pressure. Israel has received extensive military and diplomatic support from the United States, which has vetoed multiple pro-ceasefire resolutions from the UN Security Council. Israel rejected the accusations as baseless and anti-Semitic, but their international standing suffered. ICJ and ICC proceedings have chilled diplomatic and economic relations for Israel's leadership. These developments show a world struggling to apply international law where both sides face grave accusations and where the path to justice and accountability remains politically fraught. The international community continues to grapple with questions of accountability while the conflict's legal ramifications unfold. The shockwaves of the Gaza war have extended far beyond its borders, destabilizing the wider Middle East and threatening to ignite a broader regional conflict. From the outset, Iran-backed groups across the region mobilized in support of Hamas. Hezbollah began a campaign of cross-border attacks against northern Israel, leading to a low-intensity war that displaced tens of thousands of civilians. The conflict also spilled over into the vital shipping lanes of the Red Sea. The Houthi movement in Yemen initiated attacks on commercial vessels, severely disrupting global trade and drawing international military forces into the fray. The war has effectively shattered the diplomatic progress made in the years prior, most notably the Abraham Accords, which had normalized relations between Israel and several Arab nations, including the UAE and Bahrain. While these accords have not been officially broken, public anger across the Arab world over the devastation in Gaza has put these relationships under severe strain and frozen any further normalization efforts. The conflict has recentered the Palestinian issue at the heart of regional politics, reversing a trend where it had been increasingly sidelined in favor of shared concerns about Iran and economic cooperation. As of August 2025, the Gaza war has left a legacy of unprecedented destruction and an uncertain future. Gaza lies in ruins, its population traumatized and facing a monumental task of rebuilding with no clear political solution in sight. Israel, while having degraded Hamas's conventional military capabilities, faces an ongoing insurgency, deep societal divisions, and international isolation. The core issues of the conflict, occupation, security, self-determination, and justice, remain unresolved and more inflamed than ever. The absence of a viable pathway to a two-state solution or any other agreed-upon political settlement means that the end of this devastating war may only be the prelude to the next, casting a long and dark shadow over the prospects for lasting peace and security for both Palestinians and Israelis. The failure to establish viable post-war governance has left a power vacuum filled by militant remnants, clan leaders, and chaos, ensuring that the cycle of violence and instability continues. Yet amid this devastation, the human spirit endures, and the hope for peace, however distant, remains. The Gaza war stands as a stark reminder of the urgent need for justice, reconciliation, and a sustainable path to peace.